What's going on, everyone? Today, you have Alex and me back with another video teaching you how to live well and move well. And today, we're running through the shoulders.
There are 17 muscles when it comes to our shoulder complex. And the goal is we're trying to make sure that we're going to strengthen each and every one of these muscles through full range of motion, such as going over exercises like the bench press, pull-ups, push-ups, dips. If any of these exercises are causing you any type of pain in your shoulder complex, then here's what we're gonna do to start fixing that pain. Starting ourselves off with soft tissue work. Anshul's working on some barbell smashing of the lats, trying to break in, getting rid of any adhesion he has in the shoulder, just so we can get a little more freer range of motion. Then we're gonna work our way up to the traps, as well as barbell smashing the top side of the shoulder, which is getting the upper traps. We tend to use our upper traps a lot when we're sitting in our desks. Typically our shoulders are quite elevated because we hold our phones up, so that you can get that trap to get into a longer position.
And now we're gonna get in some soft tissue of the chest. Alex is gonna go ahead and get on the floor here, get into that pec major complex. So he's working all throughout that range of the pec, getting his arm out. One of the big things here is the chest is a huge internal rotator and flexor of the shoulder. So if this thing is tight, you're gonna be in a chronically internally rotated position, as well as a chronically flexed position. And that's where you get those rounded shoulders that everyone likes to talk about. So using any type of ball, like a lacrosse ball or an acupuncture ball, on that chest will be amazing. And now we're getting into the pec minor, which can be tight for a lot of people because again, we're sitting on our desks and we're typing on our computers, we're on our phones, again, in that chronically internally rotated position. So here's a way to get into that muscle and loosen it up and open up extra range of motion into your shoulders.
We got foam rolling of the upper back. We have a bunch of muscles that tie ourselves from the mid to upper back, such as the mid and lower trap. We got rhomboids, scaps, and they all help retract the shoulder blade back, which helps keep your shoulder in the right position. Keeping your shoulder in the right position helps directly support all pressing and pulling movements with the upper body, making sure we're using a foam roller to wake up all of those muscles so that we can access them, so we can have more pain-free pressing and pulling. And now that the upper back is nice and loose, we'll carry that right over into a can opener stretch, where he's going to keep that foam roller right in the middle of his upper back. He's going to reach with those arms for a heavy weight, such as a kettlebell. He's going to make sure he's pushing his hips down into the floor. What this is going to do, it's going to really elongate his lats into his triceps, which is going to give him a much freer overhead pressing motion.
Alex is now getting into a banded joint mobilization of the glenohumeral joint. The idea is not to open up space, contrary to popular belief, but we're actually just activating all the internal stabilizers of the GH joint here. And we're also creating a little bit more freedom of that range of motion since we do that. So Alex is gonna shift into the band and out towards the band with his wrist trapped in the floor. And he's gonna focus just on getting that band to do the work for him.
Anshul is doing a little double whammy stretch with the two bands. He has one band wrapped around the bottom of his foot that is then attached to the top of his upper trap. And then he has another band that's attached to the lower part of the rig that is hooked around his wrist. And the goal here is we're trying to create as much length from that bicep all the way through that upper trap, all the way up into his sternocleidomastoid, which is his neck.
Our last mobility exercise is going to be a thoracic opener. So Alex is going to get the kettlebell up resting on his shoulder. He's going to pull super hard with that left hand. He's pulling into his right leg as hard as he can. He's going to take a deep breath and he's going to rotate while letting that breath out. That's good. And we're going to take one more deep breath in and one more rotation. So 3 total. And boom, right here, you're going to see that his back is basically parallel to the mirror now, which is absolutely incredible. And that's where we're holding that stretch and coming back to center.
A very simple back strengthening exercise for the rhomboids and scaps are a simple banded pull apart. The goal is we're going to start pulling from an elevated position, kind of like 45 degrees above his shoulder. And then he's gonna make sure with straight elbows, he's pulling those bands straight apart, thinking about squeezing his upper back and pinching his shoulder blades together. So if you notice here, if I put one finger in between, it's here, and he can then squeeze my finger with his upper back. Notice how he has very good shoulder movement of his upper back.
And now Alex is getting into a W external rotation overhead press with that same band that we just used. So the cues here are to drive your shoulders out. So we're driving the shoulders out, externally rotating them, and then holding that position the whole time, lighting up that posterior capsule of the shoulder and going overhead.
Then we're going to look into strengthening the rotator cuff by doing an external rotation with a dumbbell by placing our elbow on top of our kneecap. He's gonna make sure that his shoulders are in line with that leg that is out to the side that he's balancing that elbow on. As he rotates down, he's focusing on just squeezing these muscles in the back part of the shoulder, which make up that rotator cuff. External rotation is very important to train because it's what helps keep our shoulders really healthy. And a lot of times the muscles on the back of the shoulder are really loose and long, so they're not very strong and stable, and this is gonna help make them strong and stable.
Alex is now strengthening his internal rotators. The reason we want to still strengthen the internal rotators is the same principle with the hip flexors. A lot of people complain about how their hip flexors are tight, but in reality, they're just weak and tight. And the same thing with internal rotation, since we're always stuck in that chronically internal rotated position, those muscles become tight and shortened, but also weak. So this is a great way to strengthen the internal rotators using just a band and a rig. The cues for this exercise are to keep the elbow locked into the side of the torso and only focus on internally rotating that shoulder. Alex is now getting into a banded protraction. We're working what's called the serratus anterior muscle. This is my personal favorite muscle that sits right underneath, attaching into those top ribs, and it actually aids in pulling the shoulder blade forward. So you'll see that shoulder blade come forward. And this is an amazing exercise to increase pressing strength as well as stability in those end range movements of pressing. Think of a handstand push-up, a bench press. This is a way that you can strengthen those positions and support the health of your shoulder.
After we strengthen our shoulders, now we're going to start creating stability. One way we can do that is with an upside down kettlebell press. The way that this is a little more challenging than, like, say, a dumbbell press is this kettlebell is working against him the whole way up and down. And he has to really focus on squeezing his hands really hard to create stability, or else it'll do something just like that. This exercise is great for activating each and every stabilizer that we have in our shoulder complex. It allows us to create a lot of stability.
Alex is now getting into a scapular bridge where the hand is going to be right underneath the shoulder. So ideally, we want Alex to get that wrist a little bit more in line with that shoulder. Perfect. And here, not only are we getting all these shoulder stabilizers working, so we're pushing the ground as hard as we can away, we're also getting a nice bicep stretch as well. Focus on keeping your hips driving up to the ceiling and using all 5 fingers to press through the floor and press away.
Lastly, we're gonna work ourselves into some ATYs. The setup for this is we wanna make sure our side where our head is resting is elevated slightly. And then we also wanna make sure for the A's, we are keeping our palms up towards the ceiling to activate our mid and lower traps. After your A's, you'll then bring your arms out to your T's, which from here, he's going to get up into a 3-point stance where he has his knee and hand on the bench and foot on the floor. And then notice first, he retracts his shoulder blade and then pulls his arm. So retraction of the shoulder blade right there, and then pulls his arm directly out to the side, keeping his arms straight, not allowing his elbows to bend. The T's help directly activate the scapular retractors as well as the rhomboids to help retract that shoulder blade. To round it all off, we have our Y's. This is trying to mimic an overhead position at the fully flexed Y. This is also activating the mid and lower traps, kind of like our A's, but this is a little more challenging than our A's. And also we want to focus on having our thumbs up towards the ceiling, and you can do this without load as well if any loading makes this too challenging. Upper traps tend to overactivate when we do this drill, so one good way to really avoid doing this is keeping our chin tucked as well as keeping our shoulders as far away from our ears as possible the entire way.
Doing all the exercises that we showed you today is going to allow you to activate all the stabilizers and open up your shoulder to the point where you're able to do full range bench presses, dips, handstand push-ups, and anything else that has been giving you pain day to day with your shoulders. Thanks for tuning in, our beautiful people, and thanks for stopping by with us today.
Once again, we're here to help you guys, so if you have any questions, hit us in the comments, let us know what you got. We'll help you out as best we can.
Yup. Peace.